Okay, so now we have these points. This is really the data we want to work with. I just want to show you a few basic point visualization ideas. A lot of times initially when we bring in data, they're going to be points. We might convert them to other types ultimately for different kind of processing, but everything's basically going to come in as points. So if we go to style, again, we can set, a style for each point, like a single style for each point. You can do airplanes if you want. I like these crosses. I don't know. I think they look pretty cool. If you want to actually visualize a piece of data, all that data in the attribute table can actually drive the visualization itself. And this is typically what we see as like a very basic visualization. Say you have a lot of points that are like house listings. I want to like change the color based on price. And you do that up here where it says single symbol. There's a few different options for how you can visualize this data, how you can translate from a piece of data that's tied to that feature into a representation. Okay, so this is the most basic visualization. And there's two types. There's graduated, which works with numbered data, numerical data. And it will basically assign colors based on a scale from the minimum to the maximum value. And there's categorized, which will visualize things based on categories. Okay, so if the data set has a set number of categories, or that data has like only a certain number of types, you can use categorize to give them different colors. I'll show you both with this data set. First one is graduated, and I want to basically color the points differently based on price. Okay, so you pick graduated, and here you specify the data. When I go in here, I only have two pieces of data. I just have latitude and longitude. Okay, this is a problem. Basically, graduated needs numerical data, and even though price in our case is numerical, because there might be a few errors in the data set, GIS has brought that price data as a text, not as numbers. Okay, so just like in Python, it's important to specify if it's a string or number. It's the same thing here. So if you find this case where the number data you want to use isn't here, all you have to do is just convert that field to a number type instead of a string. Okay, so I'm just gonna get out of here for a second and show you how to do that. If you go to attribute table, instead of changing the format, so here we have all our data. You see a lot of these are numbers, but price here, it brought it in as a text. Okay, so it can't work with a number as a number. And what I'm going to do, instead of changing the type of field this is, I'm just going to make a new field which takes the same data, but that field I'm going to specify as a number. So I'm just going to copy all the information to a new number type field. Alright, so to do that, I need to, you see how all these are gray right now? Because I can't do any editing unless the shapefile is in edit mode. So I'm going to hit the pencil here to start editing. And I'm going to use this calculator, field calculator, to create that new field. This is a really useful tool. You can basically create new data from existing data. You can use this to do things like adding numbers together or do any kind of math. Or the simplest thing is you just copy over a piece of data. So I'm going to click this. By default, it's going to say create new field. That's what I want. You have to specify a field name, so I'm just going to say price num. This is the numerical price. Here you select text, string, decimal number, or whole number. We already know these things from Python, right? The only reason you specify a whole or decimal is because whole numbers take a lot less space to store. So if you're dealing with a whole number, which my prices are in whole numbers, there's no reason to use a decimal number. It's just going to mean your data set takes up more space on your hard drive. And then output field width, you can just keep this as 10. This is the maximum number of places. If you use a real number, you have to also specify the precision. This is the number of places after the decimal point. Because we want to use whole numbers, that doesn't apply. Okay, so this will basically create a new layer. It's going to be a type, a whole number type. And here in the expression, I specify how I want it to fill that data. And this is a generic expression builder. We're going to see this again later. Here it has a lot of the functions. This is similar to like in Python, we use functions. It has a lot of kind of math operations. So you can go through here and see what's available. In our case, it's going to be really simple. We're just going to take literally another field and use that. Okay? All your fields that are in this data set are under this fields and values roll down. So roll that down, it's going to have everything. And we just want to double click on price. It's going to bring this down here. So when it looks on how the fill that new field, it's just going to do this. We can also do things like take price, divide by 2. Okay, if we want half the price for whatever reason. And we'll see that expressions again later. For now, we just want to do the price. Hit OK. And you can see here it's added a new column, price num. It's the same exact number, but now it's justified on the right side, which means it's a number type. That's how you can tell. Okay, so now that that's done, I can save my changes, get out of edit mode. And now those changes are saved. We can go back to our style tab in this layer properties. And now I want to go to graduated again, and in the roll down, see now I have my price num, because this will display all your numeric fields. So I select price num. The symbol, I can make general changes to the symbol by clicking it here. For instance, if I don't want a stroke, an outline for the dots, I can set that here. Go to simple marker, turn off the outline style. So they'll turn off the strokes for all of them. We see the color is now being generated automatically according to this ramp. You can make your own ramps. Ramp is just a way to interpolate between different colors. I am going to use this one. Every time you pick a new one, just do classify. It'll re-style those with different colors. You can also invert them. All right. So now if I apply this, you can see everything's blue, right? And here you can see the way it's separating. So it's basically you use 5 colors. You can specify more if you want. Instead of 5 different categories, you can have 9. Just reclassify it. Okay, so you can select which ones. And you can see how it's separating them out. There's different ways that it will take that whole space of values from the minimum to the highest and break those up into categories. Okay, the basic one is equal intervals. It'll just take the lowest number and the highest number and divide that range equally. For some data, that's good. Depending on the distribution of the data, for instance, price data tends to be really skewed towards the bottom end. There's a few super luxury units on top, but most things are on the bottom of the distribution. There's different modes you can use. One that typically results in like a really nice looking distribution is quantiles. And so you can see here's a hint, equal count. It will make those categories so that there's an equal number of points in each category. Okay, so if I switch to that, it's going to redo these breaks, basically, and apply that, and you get something a lot nicer, right? Something a lot kind of more descriptive. Okay, so that's a very basic visualization type. You can see if I zoom in here, I can see a lot of those points. The problem with this, even though we're interested in big data, when you go about visualizing the data, sometimes displaying every point is not actually ideal. Okay, and that's going to be the purpose of doing something like this, is instead of looking at every point, when you zoom out, you just get these kind of masses of color. You can't really see what's going on. We're going to go through some ways of actually averaging and reducing the amount of data so you can tell a clear story. That's the basic kind of visualization. You just give a style to every point depending on some data. All right. That was graduated. The other type is categorized. So if we go to categorized, here it's going to let you pick any field. And what it's going to do is whatever field you choose, it's going to find all the unique categories, all the unique values. So you don't want to do like price for this, because it's going to take every single unique price and say it's a category, and you're going to have like thousands of categories here. You want to do this with a data set that actually is kind of categorical, right? It has a finite small number of categories. So for instance, you can imagine roads. You would categorize depending on use. It's like a highway or a small road or something like this. Okay. And in this data set, I have this field called rooms. This is the number of bedrooms in the house. And I've filtered this or kind of cleaned this up to just say houses that have 1, 2, 3, 4 or more than 4 rooms. So there's only 5 categories. If I select this here, again, I can change basic properties, taking the stroke off here. And then I'll do classify. Now when I hit classify, instead of having a number of categories I set myself, like for the graduated, it's going to just find all unique values. See here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, over 4. Those are the pieces I want. It also has some data that looks a lot like longitude values. So this is, again, messiness, right? For some reason, some longitude got into the room field. And in this, it's pretty easy. You know, we're not gonna get too worried about why that's happening if it's just a few entries. If you don't want to visualize those at all, you can just select all the categories you don't want to see on your map. For instance, these are just errors, whatever, they're somewhere in my data set. And just hit delete, okay? And it'll just get rid of all those fields, so I'm just left with 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I can use in the same way different color ramps. By default, it'll be random colors, right? But you can also use color ramps the same way. So hit apply. You can see now this is visualized according to the number of rooms in each house. So that's really basic visualization, graduated and categorized.